It's good to see you again. I am Steve.